as we all know, Representative Tulsi Gabbard is back on the campaign trail, and I want to make it very clear that she has met the individual donor donations to be on the debate stage, and she's qualified in 2 polls, polling at 2%, but she would need 2 more. And as it looks like it stands right now, because the DNC has already put out all 10 of the individuals that are going to be on the debate stage, it looks like Representative Tulsi Gabbard and billionaire activist Tom Steyer will not be on the debate stage. So I think a lot of people want to know really what's going on. Why is this happening? What has happened? So there's an article by 538 saying, what if the third debate were based on different polls? And here's the exercise in which they're talking about, in fairness to our understanding how the DNC determines its list of approved polling organizations can be confusing. Gabbard did hit 2% in YouGov's latest national survey sponsored by The Economist, but didn't count toward qualifying for the debate. So to better understand how to include different pollsters or relying on different polling methodologies could affect who made the debate stage, we checked to see who would have qualified if all polls have been counted, just polls from pollsters with a grade of at least B- or better according to 538's pollster ratings, and only live phone interview polls, which are often considered the gold standard of polling, which, mind you, they only use landline phones. So it goes to show you who they're really calling. So they state that the thought of this exercise, we also kept many of the DNC requirements for the third debate, meaning we also include only polls released between June 28th and August 28th, and only counted a candidate as qualified if he or she had 2% in 4 polls and attracted the support of 130,000 individual donors, including at least 400 individual donors in at least 20 states. We also adhere to the DNC rules that limit qualifying polls to national and early state surveys, and that said, 2 polls by the same pollster in the same geography can't be counted. Okay, so first up, who would have made a stage in our most generous scenario where all polls are counted? Well, maybe not as many candidates as you expect. Given the parameters, Gabbard and Steiner would make the stage with 9 and 7 polls respectively. And author and motivational speaker Marianne Williamson comes a little closer to making it with 2 qualifying polls. She also has met the donor requirement, but this still leaves out 7 candidates that 538 considers major, as well as candidates who have dropped out since the second debate. What if all the polls have been counted for the third debate? Candidates who would have qualified for the third debate had the DNC used all polls. It goes on for Vice President Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang, Julian Castro, Tulsi Gabbard, and Tom Steyer. So that's who makes it, at least according to their generous, ideology, or at least how they made it all messed up. So again, for candidates considered major by 538, we adhere to the same DNC requirements, and then it goes on to the also using the same polling data if B of at least B minus counted. So it goes on to state Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang, Julian Castro, Tulsi Gabbard, and Tom Steyer. So that's who they count. And then when they add in the phone information, Tom Steyer and Tulsi Gabbard are not counted in that. So same people who already made the qualification, except you're subtracting Tulsi Gabbard and Tom Steyer. So, guys, I kind of want to add in your comments about this, about just how really what it takes to require to be on the debate stage. I think a lot of people in the live stream chat were asking about, hey, are you going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard? Are you going to talk about their debate stage? And I want to make it very clear that I find the rules ridiculous, and I also find the fact that, the Tulsi Gabbard campaign did call out the DNC for throwing away a lot of polls, especially that are recognized by nationally as legitimate sources. They just decided to remove her and stated that those don't count. But I think it's a huge disservice for us, especially as people who want to get involved in this 2020 election cycle. I feel that Representative Tulsi Gabbard's voice and presence is needed there, and the very fact that she's not there is pretty sad at this point.
Yeah, I think that at its core, this is what corruption looks like. This is how you determine who gets into where. Let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard's performance. In every debate she's been in, she's been the most searched candidate after. That's pretty big.
That was after both debates, too. And mind you,
every debate she's in, she's knocked one person out of the election, more or less. In the first guy, I always forget his name.
John Delaney, the guy who looks like Bill Boom.
Yes.
No.
So wasn't it Tim Ryan that she?
I think it was Tim Ryan.
Yeah,
right?
Tim Ryan.
Because it was with the it's not. Yeah.
Tim Ryan and
Yeah, it was a I forget the exact context of the question, but it was a foreign involvement, a foreign military question.
He basically said, the Taliban, Al Qaeda attacked us on 9/11.
Oh, right.
She's like, no, there's the Taliban, or however it went.
Al Qaeda.
Yeah, whatever it was. She destroyed them, and I can't remember it perfectly. I apologize. So in debate 1 she's in, she knocks someone, Tim Ryan, out of the debate, out of the election, basically, with one fell swoop, and becomes the most searched person on Google after the debate. In her second debate, she basically knocks Kamala Harris out of the election.
I think that basically destroyed Kamala Harris's campaign.
Yeah,
if anything, she, Kamala Harris lost all her momentum.
Yes,
but also
everything. But at the second, and she's the most searched person after the debate. But we've talked about before about the methodology, about how if you only use landlines, you're naturally focusing on who you're talking about. But this is also very important because, again, I knew early on that she was not going to make the third round because of these type of shenanigans. And if you look back a few months, you'll see me talking about that I was happy that she would get as far as she did, and she did everything I was hoping. And now I very much hope, I think, I guess I'll speak for myself, that she becomes Secretary of State under Sanders. I think that'd be a perfect role for her. Anyway, I'm getting way off track. The point I want to remind people is, especially if you're younger, Bernie Sanders controls the majority of people under 55. That's huge. However, people over 55 are the people that vote. We saw in the midterm about 30% of young people came out to vote. If 40% of young people below 55, equally broken down, so 40% 18 to 28, et cetera, Sanders wins it entirely and completely. Part of the reason that they don't give Sanders a chance, or Tulsi for that matter, is their voters are younger. The younger voters in their minds don't come out to vote. So if you're not young and you don't pick up a landline, congratulations, you can't tell them Tulsi Gabbard's someone that you want to vote for. And Joe Biden is very popular, therefore. So even with all that, even with all those numbers that you see in the polls, remind yourself that they're undercounting young people because they don't expect them to vote, and they're reaching people who have landlines. So it's very easy to surprise them in the polls if you just go out and vote, especially in the primary. Primaries are far more important than elections because you can determine who's going to be in the election in the primary.
Yeah, I don't know if I put a whole lot of stock in polls this early. I don't know if I put a whole lot of stock in any of these polling methodologies. Yeah. I generally don't trust them. And even a place like 538, why are we taking their analysis?
Well, but
because his haircut's fantastic.
Well, also I think
he does the sports stuff well.
I think it's also very important to note that they're using more fair methodology. I know
more fair.
Yeah, more fair, I guess. And that's being generous, saying about how 538 has screwed up numerous times in regards to predicting of how election cycles turn out. But I think it's really important to note that, yes, Tulsi Gabbard and even Tom Steyer met the requirements, or already have the requirements, to be on the third debate stage. And I feel that she should be on there. And more importantly, when we look at what Representative Tulsi Gabbard has done during this entire campaign trail, she has left an impact in this country, and she's made a name for herself, and she's earned support from people on the left and on the right.
Tulsi deserves to be on that debate stage, as far as I'm concerned. 100%. Now, that said, she's not out of the race.
No, she's still campaigning in Iowa.
She is still campaigning for sure. I expect to see more of her. I expect her to show up on more shows. She went on Tucker Carlson recently to talk about this exact issue, the fact that there are a lot of polls that do have her meeting the requirement that the DNC is not recognizing, and basically complaining that the process itself is opaque and not thorough and not operating with any level of transparency. Okay. So I think that's the point that we're getting at here, is that the DNC is not being fair about who's going to be on the debate stage. But for Tulsi supporters in our audience, rest assured, she is not out of the race.
Yeah,
I expect to hear a lot more from her.
And look, I'm just going to give a small glimmer of hope, but I don't know whether or not it will really follow through because I doubt the DNC is going to have any integrity. But there is a small window of a chance where she could potentially be on the stage. Is it going to happen? No, because the DNC is not going to allow it.
Well, they've already announced the lineup.
Yeah, they already announced the lineup. So I mean, but some people were hinting at it, like, is there a possibility? Maybe in theory, but with the DNC
in hypothetical, it's not really even that. This is exactly what we thought it was going to be. The DNC sees Tulsi as a giant slayer,
but we don't,
and they're terrified of that. So they're not going to do. They're going to do everything they can to stop her. Is her campaign over? No. She's going to continue doing her thing. She just isn't on. Let's just clarify what we're really talking about. She's not going to be on a debate that Bernie Sanders has already described as useless
and demeaning.
So in that context, she's not on the debate with all the other people, and if other people drop out, maybe, and if she joins someone else's campaign, she's still going to be relevant.
I mean, it isn't insignificant exposure, though. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's a blow to not be on that stage.
Yeah, that's fair. But she's already giant slayed 2 people. But that's in all contexts of what she's fighting. Right. She's young. She can run again, and this is like what Sanders went through the first time he ran. So she can come in 4 years or 8 years and be even stronger.
But here's just one prediction for how the third debate stage is going to turn out as we move on to our last story. After the third debate, these are the 4 people who I see we're going to make it continue on. It'll be Senator Bernie Sanders, Biden, because the DNC is putting all their chips on him. They're putting all their eggs in one basket for Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and the wild card, Andrew Yang. These are the 4 that are going to continue on.
I notice we got a lot of Yang Gang in the chat. Hi, everybody.
So I mean, those are the 4 that are going to continue on. Now, whether or not Representative Tulsi Gabbard suspends her campaign will be yet to be seen. I don't think she will for a while. No, she's not. She's going to keep on fighting. For her, this is very important. And I think
she's doing it for the same reason Sanders is. She has a message she wants to bring forward. She is someone who was a combat medic, saw every casualty inflicted in war after she signed up for patriotic reasons and realized that she had been lied to, and that the reason all the people before her were being injured was for reasons of oil and money and global power, and she is trying to expose that.
Yeah.
And that's not someone who's like, I think it's I'm gonna make that debate. This seems like about the right time to turn myself in and not run for this race. She's gonna run because what she's doing is what she wants to do, and that is bring an ideology forward.
Yeah.